Hey everyone, welcome. I'm going to give it till 7:01 like normal before we start doing anything. Just a reminder that this is being live streamed to YouTube, so everything that we say and we do will be published online. Keep that in mind. We do not have anything to vote on tonight, so no need to worry about votes or anything like that. But I hope everyone's doing okay. All right. We will get started with minute approval, and then we have a guest speaker. So does anyone have any corrections to the previous minutes? Any corrections? Okay, then the minutes are approved as written. We will now move on to our guest speaker, Ms. Ashley Canty. She is from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I believe she's the Inclusive Practices Manager, and we're really, really excited to have her here tonight. So thank you so much for being here, Ms. Canty.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Ashley Canty, and I work in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion as the Inclusive Practice Manager. I started at Wake in July, so I've been completely remote for the entirety of my time here. So I haven't had a chance to be on campus or to engage with any of you, but hopefully I'll be able to do that at some point in this time. And so I'm originally from Winston-Salem, grew up here. I've lived elsewhere and have the honor of serving in this role. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. And thank you, Tim. I know Tim from our previous roles working in fraternity and sorority life. So my role at Wake Forest is to work with our Inclusive Excellence Framework. And so our Inclusive Excellence Framework is the RIDE framework, which some of you may have heard of or seen or have had the opportunity to attend one of our workshops. And so with our RIDE program, it really focuses on how we can realize how to be inclusive, how to be diverse, and what equity means. So as an institution, this framework has been adopted, and in my role, I work with creating the trainings, doing the research for the tools, and also to be able to engage student organizations and departments on how they can best apply this to their work and to their organizations. So as we think about inclusive excellence at Wake Forest, we also want to think about how can people intentionally learn, build, and cultivate inclusive practices. And as an institution, we have a responsibility to facilitate and practice that, and to also provide opportunities for learning and growth. As student organization leaders and student government leaders, we want to make sure that we're supporting you as well in creating these opportunities for growth, either within the organization or for students who engage with you all. So President Hatch, as presented with the report for the President's Commission on Race, Equity, and Community, he said this quote, that we will adopt RIDE and it will guide our work as we nurture community and affirm the value of each of us, each among us. So we want to examine the ways, as he said, that inclusion, diversity, and equity are manifest in our respective spaces. So the RIDE program is a multi-level target areas for impact and practice. There's the individual aspect, there's departmental and organizational pieces, and then there's the institution, and the support comes from ODI. So myself, my supervisor, Malika, as well as the identity centers work to support this program, along with student organizations like yourself, who can adopt this as your framework in creating a plan, but then also sharing that with your peers and other organizations. This is what we're looking to impact. As you look at this framework, there's the individual, the departmental, and the institutional. And within these, there's several resources that are available for you all to use, and tools that will apply directly to student organizations. We have tools that speak about creating belonging. We have tools that talk about dealing with the different types of trauma based on identity, but then also how do we encourage leadership? How do we become inclusive leaders? And so this framework really captures at the heart the different ways that we can seek to impact systems to create more equity across Wake Forest. So the framework really tells us where we want to go, but then the second part of that is we have a plan. And so that plan will detail how you get there. So as an organization or as different committees, you would choose your targets, and then you would ask yourself, what will be done, who will do it, and by when will they do it? And also what's needed to perform the task. And all of this is linked to our website along with information specifically about the ways that you can get involved and engaged. We have 2 programs that we offer. One is an online video that you can take on your own at any time. And then we also have a 90-minute virtual workshop. All of the student sessions are complete for this semester, but we will offer some next semester. We offer 1 a month, and they're typically, we're moving our times to about 4 o'clock to make it more, make it more available for students rather than like a 10 o'clock or a 1 o'clock. We want to make sure that we provide the best time so that everyone has access to it. As you think about the RIDE program, I am more than happy to support you all and to help you all think about that if you have questions about how SGA can be engaged, but also questions about how you can engage other student organizations that you might be in. So we want you to use the tools to watch the video, to sign up for the Inclusive Excellence for Student Leaders next semester, to develop, implement, and evaluate a RIDE plan, and then also to engage your constituencies, your peers and your classes, within your organizations, within SGA even. So that is all that I have for you all. Is there anything that you all have questions about specific to RIDE? And I'm happy to put the spring program dates into the chat.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, feel free to come off mute, and then if people start talking over each other, we'll do the raise hand thing. But does anyone have questions?
I have a question that kind of relates to the bias reporting system. I guess, how does the RIDE framework incorporate or help judge any bias reports?
So as part of the RIDE framework, we do include a piece on bias reporting, and most of the education around that is how to deal with bias, how to manage bias reports, how to address it, but then also thinking about patterns and trends. So while we don't receive the bias reports ourselves to go through them and to understand them, we do provide resources and tools within our framework to address bias in various forms, as well as information on how to report and how to hold accountable those who are part of a bias related incident.
Emmanuel, another part of that, and Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I feel pretty good about my understanding of the general framework, but another way to look at it too is one of the things that we can do is better understand as a student government the various aspects of the RIDE framework that intersect with bias. So for example, our understanding of what bias is, our own personal understanding of the bias system, and then from more of an organizational perspective, how are we educating other students on understanding bias, understanding their own personal knowledge and awareness of bias, understanding the system. So looking at it from the various levels, what can we do to better understand bias? How can we communicate that to each other as a student government? And then how can we take that campus-wide? So there's different layers that we can really work through. And I think the RIDE framework would help us break down something like bias to really look at different components and how student government can influence those components.
So correct, you're absolutely correct. So the framework will provide tools and resources for you to think about what is the climate of your student organization, what is the progression of leadership, who are the decision makers at the table, are there patterns of behavior that have gone unnoticed, how do we normalize dominant culture and ostracize those who are not a part of that, but how do we create an environment that is inclusive and ultimately leads to a greater sense of belonging?
Thank you for those answers. Sydney, are you raising your hand? Or no, you just have your hand up.
No, I just had my hand up. Sorry.
Sorry. I have a question actually. What would you recommend for a group like this one to help facilitate conversations in the moment that are a little bit more tense, especially, you know, with the state of the world right now? Do you have any recommendations for how to handle those harder conversations related to diversity issues or inclusion?
I think being an SGA gives you all a unique perspective and especially the ability to advocate for students in ways that other students don't have access to the networks that you have and the resources and the staff that you have at your disposal because of your leadership position and the way it relates to the way that the greater institution operates. And so as you think about having conversations around bias, one of the things I always say is that you need to hear the person out. I think we have such a culture sometimes of not believing that something happened or no, that wasn't it. But a lot of times they can be micro aggressions that are very small. So whether it's being overlooked when you're in a meeting, like someone's not speaking, whether it's constantly having your idea shut down for whatever reason, I think there are various ways that it can happen. And so one, calling attention to it, whether it happens in the moment or it happens afterwards, doing some education and training. We have a tool on the framework called Brave Conversations, and it's called Speak Up, but it's about how do you have conversations around different types of bias. And so I would say go through that and look at what are some of the patterns you're seeing and how can you adapt some of those practices to what you're doing. So is it providing more training? Is it creating a statement that says how you'll hold people accountable? And sometimes is it bringing in an outside third party to help facilitate the conversation? I think as we look at all things bias and things that are happening, sometimes we have to refer these conversations to other staff, other organizations that may be better equipped to handle it if you feel that maybe this isn't your place to do that. But also thinking about how can you listen, you know, asking questions like what happened, how did that make you feel, you know, those types of things. And then also asking, you know, the biggest question is, how would you like, you know, are you okay with me talking to the person that you feel did this to you? Are you okay with me bringing this up in front of the large group and having those? If they're like, no, I just wanted to express it and vent and just put it on your radar, then you can start to think about strategies to address it, whether it's some large group training, whether it's referring people back to your guidelines and the different ways that you interact and some of the policies and rules that you have implemented to make sure that there is not a pattern of bias occurring either within members or outside members as they come to you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from anyone?
Ali, one of the things we may want to think about is going into next semester, if we have a good-sized cohort of student government members who are interested in the RIDE framework, which obviously I highly recommend. We also are on target to be fully staffed next semester, which means if things go well, we'll have a co-advisor who can work more closely with the committees than I can. So we can talk about how to potentially mine aspects of the RIDE framework for each committee. If there's a different area of the framework each committee wants to focus on, that may be a good D&I committee conversation to figure out how to spearhead. But we can talk more about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
If there is a way that to do special sessions, like just let us know ahead of time and we can schedule that. We limit our sessions, our workshops to max 50, but we have to have at least 8 to do it. So because there's some group discussion pieces that are important. So we usually try to have 8, and if some people register and don't show up, we will still honor that for most of them. But anything less than 5, it's kind of hard to have those conversations, but we can figure out something that works best for you all in terms of getting you together to have those conversations and have those discussions, and then to also support you as you take it to your committees and to the larger organization of students that you impact and work with.
We'll definitely look into making that happen early next semester, hopefully. Any last questions? before? I know it's 7:15 on a Tuesday, and I'm sure you have things you'd like to be doing. But any questions? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me and for the invite. And it's nice to virtually meet you all. But if there's anything you need, my information is in the chat, and I'm more than happy to help.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Ashley.
much. Have a good one. Okay. We will move on to the next portion of our agenda. I don't know if you noticed that Ashley's email is in the chat right now, and I'm sure we can make sure that that goes out with the minutes as well. So we will move on then to just our reports for tonight. I will share my screen, and Miles, you are free to begin when you are ready.
Thank you. Just when you're ready to pull it up. All right, so I'll probably start with my meeting with Provost Kirsch. So I met with Provost Kirsch today just to do some myth busting. I know that some people brought up some concerns about, well, why were we starting the semester so late? You know, why don't we do the kind of virtual thing first and then go back into it? They really don't want to follow what other institutions are doing on that end of the semester start. A lot of the institutions like UNC and for example, pretty much started earlier than expected and kind of got caught with this whole idea that COVID was going to be gone this summer. So they really did not want to run on the anticipation of like where other schools are. I mean, he talked about other institutions that are keeping their students on there till November and Thanksgiving. So, I mean, it's really just a situation which Wake Forest had to think about going forward for the betterment of their students and the betterment of their faculty. And the faculty members really were against the idea of having the semester start a little bit early and having that online transition period go. There's another question about classes. There were less, some departments had less classes than other departments. The provost stated that there are more classes this semester than ever, but that might be to accommodate students, obviously because there are more students on campus than ever. But obviously, he said it could vary, meaning from the department side. In that case, you would he said it's not an unusual thing that happens, but probably would check. I would make sure that you check up on each department, make sure that you know that to get into that class or make sure that you're registered for that class as soon as possible if you are a major student in that classroom, in that department, or if you're a freshman or a sophomore who's probably a freshman more so to get registered for that class as a divisional. In regards to more spaces on campus for class, you know, for doing some classwork outside, I know it's going to get colder next semester. So they are going to open up academic spaces more of the buildings, more of the classrooms. But as the COVID situation, if it gets worse or, you know, we end up in this orange type of attitude continuing going forward, obviously those the classes will kind of shut down. We'll kind of go back to where we are now, to where, like, you know, they'll still have the tents, but obviously they want to make sure that we have enough space for people to study and have spaces at night. So then I'll touch upon the President's Advisory Committee. So we met last week. We went over a lot of the responses that students, faculty members had, and I think alumni as well, about the new president and what they expect. It seems like a lot of the topics, or if we want to condense them, were around diversity and inclusion, academics, and I think empathy was a big one on the president's side, making sure the president was visible for students. So those were like the three takeaways that we got. And we're going to keep going forward with looking into what the call to conversations look like. I mean, the responses were a different source, but now we're going to look into what the call to conversations look like and put up our recommendations to the committee of what this kind of can look like for the future. I'm going to work with the other committees, obviously, the faculty committee more so. And then just on the election, so we do have a president-elect, and in that case, and I do want to say that obviously across the board, respect both parties and respect, you know, from my end, I respect both parties and respect both individuals who ran for president. I think that it's an honor that, you know, Vice President Biden is the president-elect, and we should be looking forward to the future, especially to for our campus. And I know that there was a lot of people who were concerned with the post that we made about, you know, respecting all sides, or you know, no matter who wins, we should respect the candidates. So I really would hope that people going forward, we can find a way to bridge that gap on campus and bring people together. I know that there are still some questions up in the air, but I'm going to be working with the WFU GOP and college Dems to make sure that we can kind of bridge these two kind of divides together. So that's what I'm working on going forward. So definitely want our campus to be 100% healed. So if there are any other questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. Any questions for Miles's report or comments?
I know you talked about like the spring semester and going back and how classes would look. But I was wondering if, whenever we come back, will we go back like into like the yellow level at the beginning of the semester?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a determination up to the school. They are so, and also another thing I would say, Sydney. So they're going to obviously evaluate the situation as it comes. But I know that for some classes, the blended aspect, it would say blended, but in reality, we're more so online. That's going to change. We're going to have more of a more blended opportunity of face-to-face. So we're not going to go into kind of pushing more so towards this blended aspect, towards this traditional, towards this online pathway. I think they're trying to stick it to more face-to-face and trying to make it a truly blended opportunity for classes to be face-to-face. So that should be a situation, that should be a conversation that they have later down the road. So I would just come back with that question when it's like January.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna, Miles is not wrong. Sid, I think it's safe to say that we're gonna take a slightly more conservative stance than the state has been practiced. And if you read today, you know that the state rolled back to 25 and 10. We never left 25 and 10. And we wouldn't make a decision on that until we see numbers more closely coming back. But knowing what we're hearing about what the winter is going to look like, I think it's safe to say that yellow is a best case scenario. But again, we don't need to make a decision right now, so there's no need to move aggressively on that.
Any other questions for Miles's report?
Yeah, is there any insider takes on the vaccine? I know it's early and there's no numbers on how it's distributed, but how administration views, the fact that it actually exists.
So sorry, Robbie, to cut you off, but I did talk to the provost about obviously we talked about the positive side of having a 90% effective vaccine. But I think that's another situation where when it gets here, the distribution side, then we'll handle it then. So definitely just keeping our fingers crossed here on that. But hopefully once we get to that point of distribution, the school can kind of figure out what the planning process would be with that. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Any other questions for Miles's report? All right, then we'll move on to my report. The process packet that I have been talking about for the better part of a semester is finally ready. We are, we just got the DB card so that we can actually download it with the subscription from the website. It's pretty big, huge thanks to Vivian and Judiciary for working on it with me. It's kind of been a headache, but that's really exciting. And it has a lot of really, really helpful graphics and information so that, the things in our governing documents that are kind of hard to find will be a lot easier to find. And you all should have an ability to keep that on your computer or find it in your email or whatever else. So that's super, super exciting. If you would like to view it now, anyone, please let me know. I can email it out with a link, but I don't have the PDF until next week. The Counseling Center Director Search Committee has made formal recommendations with the candidates following the campus partner interviews that took place for the last few weeks. So that decision is being made at a higher administrative level, and they will be moving forward with offering candidates or candidate positions. So not much I can share on that, but I do just want to let you know that we have finished the final round interviews and those recommendations have been made to the university. So, all fingers crossed and all that, we are moving forward really well. And the candidate pool was really wonderful. So for those senators who did participate in those interviews, I know you can probably attest to the candidates we interviewed, but if anyone has specific questions, let me know. I'm kind of limited on what I can say, but I'm happy to talk about the questions if you have them. And then there's just some housekeeping things. We have 2 Senates after this one. We have one next week and we have one after Thanksgiving. That means if you are working on any legislation or if you would like a guest speaker in before the end of this semester, you should be contacting me kind of now, especially if you're writing legislation, because there are steps that I need to make sure are followed along the way. And your ability to have a committee vote on it is kind of this week or next week. So if you want to have legislation in before the end of the semester, that's just an important thing to keep in mind. I know some of you are working on legislation. If you think you might want to work on legislation, please feel free to just like shoot me a text or shoot Judiciary a text, and we can just make sure everything's running along smoothly with that, because we don't want to run into time issues. And then there are a couple committees that have bigger projects that come up in the spring. I'm thinking mental health week or sustainability or things like that. So just know that I will be connecting with your committee chairs if you're in one of those committees to make sure that we're kind of planning ahead for that in the spring with whatever status or COVID things are happening in the world at that point. And then I did not put this on my slide, but I do just want to reiterate what Miles said about the election. Really thankful for the way that we as a community have handled this moving forward. You know, it's a contentious time in our country, and we will be moving forward the elections task force with looking at how we can make election day in future years kind of a day of civic service in advance, so that we don't have to be worrying about it, you know, a couple weeks before a semester again. Does anyone have any questions for my report? No. Okay, we can move on then to Victoria.
Hi guys, I don't have too much. We had a really full SBAC meeting today. We used the whole hour and a half, which we rarely do. So lots of student organizations are doing a lot on campus, which is great to hear. We won't be having an SBAC meeting on November 24th, and our last SBAC meeting is on December 1st. We won't be hearing presentations per se, but we'll be starting to talk about the budget cycle for fiscal year 2022. And so the budget cycle for fiscal year 2022 will be announced on November 17th, and all organizations will be emailed the Canvas site, the requirements, and the template for the budget by November 20th.
Does anyone have questions for Victoria for her report? All right, Caroline.
Yeah, so the Google Calendar has been updated. We have 2 more sentence left, 3 including today's. And like Ali said, those are on November 17th and December 1st. And then there's another extracurricular opportunity this week. If you want to sign up to participate in the presidential search listening session, I would highly recommend that. I participated in the one on Monday, and it was very interesting. And I thought we had a great conversation about what the next candidate for the university's president should be, and like what values they should embody. So I definitely encourage you getting involved in that and sharing your opinions with the search committee. So if you register for that, just send me confirmation, and I'll count it as an extracurricular.
Caroline, can you explain how to find that form? Because a couple people have asked in the last week or so for extracurricular.
Yes. So if you want to find the form to sign up for the presidential search, you need to look in your email, and you should have gotten an email from Chair Matt King, I believe. And you can only sign up through that email because you got like an individual link to sign up. So once you sign up, they'll like send you the Zoom link to participate. If anyone has any further questions, you can feel free to like reach out to me individually. And
the extracurricular form is where for them? Or how do they notify you?
The extracurricular form I can put on the calendar, or you can just forward me an email or confirmation that you signed up for it, and that'll also be sufficient.
Awesome.
Either will work. And then the only other thing I had was that I met with Dr. Pierce from the Character and Leadership program today about a sustainable discussion group for next semester, and building conversations among students around what it means to be a sustainable leader on campus and things like that. So we're working on that for next semester. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that or want to get involved.
Any questions for Caroline? All right, we'll move on to Drew.
Hey everyone. Ali mentioned it, but the task force we're working on conversations around making sure election day is a day off coming up in the future elections. And youth vote was at a great, it was at a really high number. So good job. But have a great week.
Any questions for Drew? All right, Tim.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
How are you, Tim?
All right, you all started off a little slow right there, but you came around. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Let's see where to begin. Just to circle back to the RIDE framework for a second, I would really recommend, if you all can find the bandwidth, to talk with Ashley about a session specific to student government. Besides being just an excellent framework on diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's also a really good framework on organizational developments. It does a nice job of really breaking down how you can look at any challenge, whether it's race, equity, inclusion, but also any organizational challenge, and how do you break it down into understanding how this affects me individually or affects others individually, how it affects our organization, how the organization can influence the campus. So I highly recommend it. Ali, if you want, we can sit and talk through how to organize it. And then again, I really recommend figuring out how each committee view the RIDE framework, and potentially find a way to implement aspects of it in your committees, and have to talk with either Ali or the D&I committee about that. So we're hearing lots of rumors about senior fifth this weekend. Just wanted to make sure you're all aware of this. We're spreading the word on it. As you can imagine, we are none too excited. This is also traditionally a weekend, the weekend prior to the last weekend of the semester. And in this case, we're considering that when you're all going home, has traditionally been a high-risk weekend for us. Last year, I believe we had 9 hospital transports on one night based on some events that occurred. The year before, we had another major incident that involved all sorts of foolishness. I see some people nodding their heads. They know what I speak. So this is a high-risk weekend. We are treating it as such. I am asking you to spread the word where you have influence for our students to think it through. We are making no bones about the fact that we're treating it as a high-risk weekend. We are planning on having law enforcement as a visible presence on high-risk areas off campus. I think you know what I mean when I talk about high-risk areas off campus. We want to be very diligent about this weekend. Also knowing that if you've seen COVID cases, they're spiking again. And what that means for yellow or orange status is going to be decided the next day or so. But we need to end the semester strong, both in terms of COVID as well as just our physical health around it. So I cannot express enough for you all to think about that. I'm wondering if student government would like to consider doing some PR around it as well. I believe the Greek councils and other areas are as well over the course of the next few days. So I would be happy to talk with anybody who's interested in taking this on. Election challenges, I'm not gonna jump on the bandwagon other than to say, hopefully we can continue to have conversations. And if anybody has heard of any challenges, let me know, simply because obviously we're trying to keep abreast of things. And sometimes I know students don't always feel comfortable coming forward. And again, it can be anything involving the election, but we just want to make sure if there's anything that we need to be following up on, good or challenging, that we are. Spaces, I am working with a group right now trying to figure out spaces for the spring semester. I mentioned this before, but we're looking at a few spaces potentially over in the first, I forget the name of the church, it's not First Baptist. Somebody help me, the church property that we bought? I cannot remember.
First Assembly of God.
Thank you, Drew. First Assembly. There's going to be some classroom space and some general area space that we're trying to figure out if we can use. We're trying to figure out ways to potentially winterize tents, so more to come on that. Lastly, I'm participating in a staff session on Monday in looking at the presidential search. If there's anything from a staff perspective that you would like me to express, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk about it. I want to make sure that I'm not just giving the perspective of myself and other staff, but also our students. So feel free to send me anything. Plus, Jess Schmidt, are you here?
Yeah, I am.
Jess Schmidt, can we talk afterwards? Because I know we are good for 8:30 tomorrow, but in true student government fashion, Melly Mesfin decided she's going to be on campus, and it's like the only time I can see her. So can we find time later in the day?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's talk after. Let's stay out after Zoom. We'll get you rescheduled.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Any questions for Tim's report? And Uma and Pilar, if we could connect and maybe find time to meet with him, I think it would be more efficient to just do all of us at the same time on the RIDE framework thing. But any other questions for Tim? Okay, then we'll move on to committees. Thank you, Tim. Academic.
Yeah, so not a whole lot going on for us, but we met with physical planning and residence life and housing earlier today, discussing concerns about move out being so compact with everything going on for those final 2 days of the semester. They basically told us that they're not going to be able to change move out because they have a lot of things they have to deal with before Thanksgiving. So pretty much we're stuck where we are. There will still be registration and move out on the 24th. So good luck, everyone. Sorry about that. Ava and I also have a meeting with ODOC tomorrow. So if y'all have any questions or things that we should bring up with them pertaining to academics, please let us know. And Ava, do you want to touch on the last piece?
Yeah, so Caroline Dixon and I met with the LAC for a follow-up meeting, and they are going to be putting up a Canvas site. We're not sure when, but that's pretty exciting. And we're going to be planning Academic Resources Awareness Week with PR. So if you have any ideas for that you want us to look into, just feel free to text one of us.
Any questions for academic?
In practice, what does that mean for the Canvas site with the LAC? Like what will that do for students?
So it's basically going to have all the resources available to so you can schedule peer tutoring with different departments, and it just is going to be on one Canvas site. So it's all in one place. You don't have to go to all these separate websites.
That's a great question. Any questions for academic? All right, we can move on then to campus life.
Yeah, so all we've got tonight is we've been working on a sustainability resolution with physical planning. So that's all I've got.
Any questions for campus life? All right, D&I.
We just have Dr. B coming to our committee meeting tomorrow. So if anybody has anything they'd like us to bring up or any questions for him or from his office in general, please let us know.
Any questions for D&I or things you want to bring up now for them? All right, judiciary.
Just a couple of main updates this week in regard to code of conduct stuff. We are working on forming the coalition group with interested campus partners. That will likely continue into next semester, but more to come on that. And then for this semester, we're hoping on working on academic focuses, especially because we're coming toward final exam season. And we want to make sure that we're promoting a positive campus culture for academic integrity and issuing policy reminders. So we're working with PR to incorporate policy messaging into the Academic Resources Week next semester, but also just this semester as well. So more on that to come. And then one other thing on the code of conduct is that we're hoping to start working on the Canvas site overbreak. And basically what that Canvas site would achieve would be to streamline all of the code of conduct stuff from the website, from the code of conduct sections on the website as well, into one Canvas course. And that can be accessed by students at all times. And then in regards to Democracy Week, that's next week on the 16th and the 18th. I and Sydney are going to Reynolds High School the 16th, we're doing a critical thinking activity. And then a subsequent theme from that is recognizing our values in negotiation and just in life. And then on the 18th, we are doing a series of student reflections and looking for avenues for future civic engagement, not only within our community, but within North Carolina and abroad. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll let you know how that goes next week.
Any questions for judiciary? I will say it's great that Ethan, you have your voice back finally. We will move on then to public relations.
Hi guys. So we met with Jean Ann from the LAC Center about Academic Resource Week. We're really excited about it. We're going to be partnering with academic and judiciary committees to work with that. We're also working on plans for the distribution of Love Feast candles, so stay tuned on how you can get your candle to celebrate that while we're at home. And again, please sign up for headshots. There's some sophomores who were appointed earlier this year who have not signed up, but I know we don't have a headshot from you guys, and then also any remaining freshmen who don't have their headshot yet. And then we'll probably be sending out times tomorrow for tomorrow and Thursday or Friday, one of those times. So please sign up if you can, and reach out again if you want us to repost anything or post anything. We're doing a Veterans Day post tomorrow, but that's about it.
Any questions for PR?
When will headshots be up on the website? Like, I know that not everyone has finished, and like, I was just curious.
They'll probably be up over break sometime. It's kind of a whole process because you have to add all these pages to the website, like a big kind of ordeal. So we're hoping to get everyone's pictures in by break, so then we can just kind of hammer that whole page out during break.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sign up this week. If you don't, then we'll try to figure out a way to make it more mandatory-ish.
Also, something for the freshmen really quick. That picture right there is from Love Feast. When we make posts about this and we're working really hard to try and get this distributed, please try to repost this as much as you can, because we recognize that y'all don't necessarily know what this is. And so we do want to do everything we can to promote this event so you can try to experience it.
Any other questions for PR or from a freshman about what Love Feast is? All right, we can move on into physical planning.
Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great Tuesday. So we met with Residence Life and Housing with Academic, and basically Raiden said it all. There's really nothing we can do in terms of registration and move out, but we did express the concerns and definitely requested that maybe a little bit more review goes into next semester if this were to occur again, the unusual registration time and move out time. I guess unusual move out, not registration so much. We are meeting with the Office of Sustainability on Thursday to begin our discussion about Earth Week in April, which is exciting. We're going to be setting up a meeting with John Wise. It'll probably be the last one of the semester. So just any constituent concerns, of course, let us know. And a notable concern that I just got note of on, well, yesterday, is that there's not any mustard in Subway right now. So we will absolutely be on that. Don't worry. If you have constituents who were really concerned about that, tell them not to fear. We're going to get that taken care of. So yes, I think that's all from physical planning this week.
Any questions for physical planning? I really like your graphics that you make, Megan.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no questions, we can move on into SOC.
What's up, guys? We had I want to say successful election night, but it was really a long week. And by successful, I mean we had a lot of student organizations specifically reach out and say that they were not going to host events, that people could go and vote if they needed to. So that was awesome that people were so responsive about that. Thank you, Dave. Heck yeah, indeed.
Any questions for SOC? All right, we can move on then to the next portion of our agenda. Does anyone have a Senate report? Constituent concerns?
I have a constituent concern. I was walking around, as you do, yesterday, and by kitchen there is a lamppost, or a light at least, that is blinking nonstop, and it drives me nuts every time I walk by it. And I know Braden saw this as well when I saw him yesterday, and I voiced my concerns to Braden as well. I'm not sure if physical planning or someone else could follow up on that, but it would relieve my headache I see every time I walk past it. So I'd appreciate it.
I second that. It's right into my window, so that would be so great because I cannot sleep with it. Thanks.
Yes, we'll definitely get on that, and I know exactly which light y'all are talking about. So hopefully somebody's already on it, but regardless, we'll definitely send an email out very shortly.
Any other constituent concerns? Okay, we can move on then to announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? I have like two, maybe 2.5 announcements. The first one is that we have these little like door signs in the student government office that say like someone's in Zoom call or something. They're really cute. They're from the Learning Assistance Center. If you would like one for this semester or for next semester so that your roommates know when not to be screaming or practicing the ukulele or I don't know, whatever else your roommates decide to do while you're in the middle of a meeting, feel free to come get one. We can let you in if you text anyone in exec, or we can leave it on the door of student government's office in Benson if you need it. And then just a reminder that we, have 2 Senates left. If you're working on legislation, let me know. And then also just know that any meetings that do happen to be held over the break, once they happen after finals, those are not mandatory, and they're not mandatory again until we get back for the semester in January. So you're absolutely encouraged to work on things that you want to work on, or if your committee has projects, but just know that that's not mandatory. Any other announcements?
Campus garden hours have been moved 4 to 5 p.m. because it's been getting darker early. But it still counts as an extracurricular if you want to come.
Any announcements? Last call.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Anyone opposed, raise your hand with the raise hand function. All right, you're free to go. Have a great week, everyone. I will keep it open. Everyone logs off.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much.
It's still being live streamed, just so everyone knows.
Wait, so is my meeting with Jess Schmidt going to be live streamed?
It will.
No, I can end the stream now. I will do that right now.
Miles, we really need a one-on-one.